En el Ramayana, otra antigua obra hindú,
In the Ramayana, another ancient Hindu work. In the Ramayana, another ancient Hindu work.
también se habla de esos misteriosos objetos volantes.
There is also talk of these mysterious flying objects. There is also talk of these mysterious flying objects.
Según se dice, las personas que se montaban
It is said that the people who rode. It is said that the people who rode.
en aquellos vehículos divinos
In those divine vehicles. In those divine vehicles.
podían viajar hacia los cielos y dirigirse,
Could travel to the heavens and go. Could travel to the heavens and go.
inclusive a sus mundos de origen.
Inclusive, to their worlds of origin. Inclusive, to their worlds of origin.
Para luego retornar a la Tierra.
To later return to earth. To later return to earth.
Esta y otras epopeyas hindúes
This and other Hindu epics. This and other Hindu epics.
describen batallas aéreas con misiles semejantes al rayo.
Describe aerial battles with lightning-like missiles. Describe aerial battles with lightning-like missiles.
Capaces de destruir, como ya vimos.
Capable of destroying, as we have already seen. Capable of destroying, as we have already seen.
Todo a su paso.
Everything in its path. Everything in its path.
La desaparición de la ciudad de Mohenjo-Daro en Pakistán.
To disappearance of the city of Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan. To disappearance of the city of Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan.
Hace unos 3.500 años.
About 3,500 years ago. About 3,500 years ago.
Podría estar relacionada con estos relatos.
Could be related to these stories. Could be related to these stories.
Según hoy sabemos sobre esa ciudad.
As we know today, about that city. As we know today, about that city.
Se produjo un resplandor deslumbrante,
There was a dazzling flash. There was a dazzling flash.
una gigantesca explosión,
A gigantic explosion. A gigantic explosion.
con una luz totalmente cegadora,
With a totally blinding light. With a totally blinding light.
que hizo hervir los mares cercanos a este enclave costero.
That made the seas boil. Near this coastal enclave boil. That made the seas boil. Near this coastal enclave boil.
¿Qué ocasionó realmente su destrucción?
What actually caused its destruction? What actually caused its destruction?
No pocos estudiosos relacionan a esa ciudad destruida
Not a few scholars relate to that destroyed city. Not a few scholars relate to that destroyed city.
con el origen de Sumer en Mesopotamia.
With the origin of Sumer in Mesopotamia. With the origin of Sumer in Mesopotamia.
Por otra parte, en los archivos reales de la cultura hitita,
On the other hand, in the royal archives of the Hittite culture. On the other hand, in the royal archives of the Hittite culture.
se habla de otra entidad, el dios Tesub,
There is talk of another entity, to God Teshub. There is talk of another entity, to God Teshub.
divino atormentador y de sus pretensiones,
Divine tormentor, and his claims. Divine tormentor, and his claims.
por controlar las regiones superiores de la tierra,
To control the upper regions of the earth. To control the upper regions of the earth.
lo cual indica que había una pugna entre esos seres
Which indicates that there was a struggle between these beings. Which indicates that there was a struggle between these beings.
por ganar el control del espacio aéreo.
To gain control of the airspace. To gain control of the airspace.
Además, las batallas que el dios Kumarbi lanzó contra el citado Tesub,
In addition to battles that the god Kumarbi launched against the aforementioned Teshub. In addition to battles that the god Kumarbi launched against the aforementioned Teshub.
se menciona, y como si eso no fuera suficiente contra sus descendientes.
Are mentioned, and as if that were not enough, against their descendants. Are mentioned, and as if that were not enough, against their descendants.
Esos dioses no solo querían destruirse ellos mismos,
Those gods not only wanted to destroy themselves, those gods not only wanted to destroy themselves,
ellos también pretendían
they also intended
borrar todo rastro y linaje del enemigo,
to erase all traces and lineage of the enemy. To erase all traces and lineage of the enemy.
al igual que el relato que ofrecen otras culturas del mundo.
Like the story offered by other world cultures. Like the story offered by other world cultures.
El vengador Kumarbi se apoya en otros dioses aliados para dar la batalla final.
The Avenger Kumarbi relies on other allied gods to give the final battle. The Avenger Kumarbi relies on other allied gods to give the final battle.
El hilo conductor está en que los hititas,
The common thread is that the Hittites,
aunque ellos pronunciaban los nombres de sus deidades en su propia lengua,
although they pronounced the names of their deities in their own language,
los escribían utilizando la escritura sameía,
they wrote them, using the Sumerian script,
para pensar un poco más.
to think a little more.
El término divino que empleaban,
The term divine that they used,
Din-Gir, es sumergio, y significa
din.gir, is Sumerian, and means,
los justos de las naves voladoras.
the righteous of the flying ships,
Pero no todos fueron tan justos.
but not all were so fair.
Todas las referencias que disponemos,
All the references we have,
ya sean largos relatos épicos o proverbios de 2 líneas,
whether they are long epic tales or two-line proverbs,
señalan a los dioses en medio de terribles batallas.
they point to the gods in the midst of terrible battles.
La epopeya hitita con claras connotaciones sumerias.
The Hittite epic with clear Sumerian connotations.
También recuerda el relato sánscrito
Also recalls the Sanskrit story.
de la batalla final entre Indra y el demonio Vritra.
Of the final battle between Indra and the demon Vritra.
Y entonces una terrorífica visión.
And then a terrifying vision.
Se pudo contemplar cuando Dios y demonio entablaron combate.
Could be seen when God and devil engaged in combat.
Vritra disparó sus agudos proyectiles,
Vritra fired her sharp projectiles.
sus incandescentes rayos y relámpagos.
Her incandescent bolts out lightning.
Después, los relámpagos empezaron a centellear.
Then the lightning began to flash.
Los estremecedores rayos a restallar lanzados orgullosamente por Indra.
The terrifying rays to crack launched proudly by Indra.
Y de pronto el toque de difuntos de la perdición de Vritra estuvo sonando con los chasquidos
And suddenly, a death knell of Vritra's doom was sounding with the clicks.
y estampidos de la lluvia de
Sand crashes of Indris.
hierro de Indra perforado, clavado, aplastado.
Iron rain, pierced, nailed, crushed.
Con un horrible alarido, el agonizante demonio cayó de cabeza.
With a hideous scream, the dying demon fell headlong.
Y Indra le dio muerte con un rayo entre los hombros.
And Indra killed him with lightning between his shoulders.
Además de la India o las viejas culturas del Oriente Medio.
In addition to India, or the old cultures of the Middle East.
Estas guerras también son mencionadas en el Apocalipsis.
These wars are also mentioned in the Apocalypse.
De San Juan capítulo 12,
Of San Juan chapter 12.
donde Miguel y sus ángeles enfrentan al dragón.
Where Michael and his angels face the dragon.
En la mitología griega,
In Greek mythology,
hallamos la sublevación de los dioses ante la suprema divinidad.
we find a revolt of the gods before the supreme divinity.
Sus.
Zeus.
Resultado de ello fue una pelea épica
The result of this was an epic fight.
que tuvo como escenario las blancas paredes del Olimpo.
That took place on the white walls of Olympus.
Las culturas americanas recuerdan también esos combates.
American cultures also remember those battles.
Que según su tradición, empezaron en el cielo
Which according to their tradition began in heaven.
antes del diluvio.
Before the flood.
¿Acaso la guerra de esos seres provocó la legendaria inundación del planeta?
Did the war of those beings cause the legendary flood of the planet? Did the war of those beings cause the legendary flood of the planet?
¿Así sucumbió la Atlántida de Platón?
Is this how Plato's Atlantis succumbed? Is this how Plato's Atlantis succumbed?
Como haya sido, hubo un nuevo comienzo en el mundo.
As it was, there was a new beginning in the world. As it was, there was a new beginning in the world.
Luego de esa catástrofe de proporciones inimaginables.
After that catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. After that catastrophe of unimaginable proportions.
El tiempo y las leyendas han ocultado el misterio.
Time and legends have hidden the mystery. Time and legends have hidden the mystery.
Un misterio que señala un bélico y destructivo comportamiento de los dioses o
a mystery that indicates a warlike and destructive behavior of the gods, or a mystery that indicates a warlike and destructive behavior of the gods, or
para llamar las cosas por su nombre.
To call things by their name. To call things by their name.
De algunos grupos extraterrestres que visitaban en aquellos tiempos nuestro planeta.
Of some extraterrestrial groups that visited in those times our planet.
Pienso que aquellas contiendas estelares
I think that those stellar contests
no encuentran una explicación satisfactoria.
They do not find a satisfactory explanation. They do not find a satisfactory explanation.
Únicamente en la ya citada cuarentena de protección planetaria.
Solely in the already mentioned planetary protection quarantine. Solely in the already mentioned planetary protection quarantine.
La sensación que dejan los relatos antiguos es que aquellos seres, los dioses.
The feeling left by the ancient stories is that those beings, the gods. The feeling left by the ancient stories is that those beings, the gods.
Se conocían y se habían jurado batalla en la tierra.
Knew each other, and they had sworn battle on earth. Knew each other, and they had sworn battle on earth.
Por alguna razón, estimo poderosa.
For some reason, consider it powerful. For some reason, consider it powerful.
Quienes estaban en nuestro mundo cumpliendo una misión.
Those who were in our world, fulfilling a mission. Those who were in our world, fulfilling a mission.
Se separaron tomando distintos rumbos y posturas.
Separated, taking different paths and positions. Separated, taking different paths and positions.
Y de un conflicto de ideas.
And from a conflict of ideas. And from a conflict of ideas.
El accionar bélico se desencadenó.
The warlike action was unleashed. The warlike action was unleashed.
La vieja mitología sameia sugiere
The old Sumerian mythology suggests. The old Sumerian mythology suggests
que todo partió de la pugna de dos bandos.
that everything started from the struggle of two sides. That everything started from the struggle of two sides.
El que seguía al dios Enlil.
The one who followed the god Enlil. The one who followed the god Enlil.
Quien, según los viejos escritos,
Who, according to the old writings, according to the old writings,
quiso destruir a la humanidad en 3 ocasiones y Enki, su hermano.
wanted to destroy humanity 3 times and Enki, his brother. Wanted to destroy humanity 3 times and Enki, his brother.
Que procuraba proteger al hombre.
Who tried to protect the man. Who tried to protect the man.
En Egipto hallamos una historia similar entre Set y Osiris.
In Egypt we find a similar story between Seth and Osiris. In Egypt we find a similar story between Seth and Osiris.
Los dioses atacándose y el ser humano en el medio.
The gods attacking each other and a human being in the middle. The gods attacking each other and a human being in the middle.
¿Fuimos nosotros la causa de estas disputas?
Were we the cause of these disputes? Were we the cause of these disputes?
En Egipto reinaron Enki y sus descendientes Marduk.
In Egypt, reigned Enki and his descendants Marduk. In Egypt, reigned Enki and his descendants Marduk.
Ra, Amon, Ra, que llegaron del planeta Nibiru.
Ra, Amon, Ra, who arrived from the planet Nibiru. Ra, Amon, Ra, who arrived from the planet Nibiru.
Según nos dice Zechariah Sitchin en sus libros.
According tells us to what Zechariah Sitchin, in his books. According tells us to what Zechariah Sitchin, in his books.
Crónicas de la Tierra.
Chronicles of the Earth. Chronicles of the Earth.
Desde los inicios de la egiptología.
From the beginnings of Egyptology. from the beginnings of Egyptology,
y de la arqueología en general,
and of archaeology in general,
ha habido una enorme confusión en cuanto a los nombres de los dioses extraterrestres,
there has been an enormous confusion as for the names of the gods extraterrestrials. There has been an enormous confusion as for the names of the gods extraterrestrials.
que eran prácticamente los mismos en todos los pueblos.
That they were practically the same in all the towns.
Solo que llamados de distintas maneras.
Just called in different ways.